Hi everyone. I have a special guest today, Michael Loera. He is a husband, father, real estate investor, entrepreneur, and a good friend. Mike,
Yep,
welcome and thank you for accepting my invitation to talk with friends. How are you today?
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing perfect. Thank you so much. I have been inviting a couple friends to have an interview, and the purpose of this is since you are experts in the real estate environment, I want you to give us advice for new investors, people who maybe doesn't know terms or processes and strategies that you're using now. The first question that I have for you is, could you share your journey and what motivated you to become a real estate investor?
Yeah, so I didn't know it was going to be real estate investing. I knew that I wanted to do something else. I just didn't know what it was going to be. At first, I started trading cryptocurrencies and stocks. And truth be told, I just couldn't be in front of a computer, all day. So at the time, my wife was a property manager, so the idea of real estate was always there, really. And I thought it'd be cool to have a couple properties as a rental and have something in the back end to retire comfortably. So that's kind of what intrigued it. But what made me really go for it was I went to the auction to try to buy a house, and I got crazily outbidded, and I didn't like that feeling. So I remember asking myself, well, how do you get the house before it goes to the auction? And
Mhm.
that's when I figured out what a pre-foreclosure was and started studying creative finance. And man, the rest was history. Started acquiring real estate creatively.
That's awesome. And what was your first creative finance deal like? And how did it change the way you think about money?
Oh my goodness. So my first deal, it's a story. I call it the 312. It took me 312 homes that I went and door knocked. I'm the type of guy that I can't be on the phone. I go to brain jail if I have to cold call. I will not do it. So even from the beginning, I started door knocking. It took me about 3.5 weeks to door knock over 300 homes. And landing my first deal, it seemed like impossible after you get rejected that many times. I was starting to blame others, like this doesn't work. Creative finance is a scam. But when I landed my first deal, after I closed and literally didn't use any money out of my own pocket, I closed on it creatively without using my cash, without checking my credit or any of my credentials. I remember staring at the property even after I closed, and I couldn't believe that it was mine. It felt wrong. I was like, wait, this was after all the work was said and done. It felt too good to be true and easy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's something about landing that first deal that it just breaks the ice. A week later, I landed two more deals. So that first month, I got three deals. So what it made me realize about money is not only is money a game, but learning how money moves has been a real eye opener. And learning how banks see the mortgages. Once you understand that the mortgage and the deed are not married and the deed can be transferred without the bank's approval, man, that sky is the limit. I don't see myself buying anything the traditional route ever.
Wow. A lot of beginners feel overwhelmed by real estate terms. How would you explain creative financing to someone who is new in real estate or who has no idea about this strategy?
Okay. Um, Creative finance is very simple. It seems like a lot when you first start, but my favorite strategy in creative finance is buying properties subject to.
Mhm.
What does that mean? So instead of me going to get a loan and run my credit and prove to the banks that I have the right debt to income ratio, put that all aside. You can go acquire a property by literally taking over the payments. Okay.
Mhm.
So envision this. You have a house in the center. Here you have the mortgage, and here you have the deed.
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe you watching, you've experienced on your personal home that you got a loan with the bank. And after a month or 6 months or a year, you get a letter in the mail that this loan got sold to another bank without your consent. They don't need your approval. The same thing is true for the deed. Since they are not married whatsoever, the deed can also be transferred. Okay. So subject to strategies work best when there's a property that is in pre-foreclosure stage, when there's a lot of pain point. Instead of the family losing a home, um, I I always tell people, if we can't save your home, which is my number one goal,
Mm-hmm.
let's at least strive to save your equity, right? In a nutshell, what I would do in the subject to transaction is I would catch up the payments that are behind. The mortgage stays in place, but the deed gets transferred. People always ask, well, why would anybody do that? It boils down, in my experience, to the three D's. There might be a death, they might have a disease, something's going wrong, maybe up in age, or a divorce, sadly but truly. People are willing to do this because they have no other options. And instead of them losing the house to the bank and losing all their equity, they at least get something out of it. When I catch up the payments, it boosts up back their credit.
Mm-hmm.
And after 12 months of me paying that mortgage, it creates a receipt that somebody else is liable for that payment, and they're able to qualify for another property. Um, and it's not always a given that they'll qualify, but I work with lenders now that can see exactly what I've been doing with the property, and they're able to remove 100% of the debt to income ratio. So it really becomes a win-win. Instead of having that foreclosure in the record, we can eliminate all that.
Right. So it's a total help for the owner. I see help everywhere.
Yeah, it's a win-win for me and them, right? Let's
Yeah.
say they have a 3% interest rate. I don't want to go get a 7% interest loan to pay off their 3%. So my benefit is getting into an interest rate that's lower than the market right now. And
Yeah.
their benefit is saving their credit. So it does become a win-win. It has to be a win-win for me and them because I don't want to structure something where it's gonna not be mutual beneficial. It has to, when I go talk to people who are in pre-foreclosure, I am not there to buy their house. When I was 14 years old, we were going through a foreclosure, and I remember how hard it was for my mother, and I wish somebody would have helped. So now I want to be the guy that would have helped my mom back then. So that's why it's become my passion to help people. And if there's nothing to be done, then I'll offer to buy the house. But I'm literally there to show them the ways that they can save the property.
Yeah, it's all about helping others. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time.
Awesome. You talk about big, and you're known as the Big Mike. Borrow, invest, generate. What does that mean to you, and how can people apply that mindset today?
Okay, so I've created the big method. And the reason I did this is because after networking and talking to a lot of people who are trying to get into the game, I see them overcomplicate real estate. So what I decided to do was to break it down in steps because that's how I do everything. I have to always break it down and focus at one step at a time. And when I explain it to people, they're like, wait, that was easy. So the three-step process for me on every investment that I do is first step is I borrow the money. I
Mhm.
never use my own money. I use other people's money. Okay, borrow. Where does the money come from? It comes from many different avenues. It could be your self-directed 401k or IRA account. It could be a private money lender. It could be a private money partner where I find the deal and then they fund it. It could be if you have a life insurance policy or IUL. Money comes from many different avenues, but that is the first step. Okay, borrowing. And then investing it. I always invested into real estate using creative strategies. The main strategies that I use, how we talked earlier, was subject to, seller finance, or a combination of those two, which we call a hybrid. And then how do
Okay.
we generate money? My bread and butter, what I like doing is co-living, midterm rentals, renting by the room to traveling professionals only. The majority of my guests are traveling nurses and government contractors. And it becomes a cool little atmosphere when it's all nurses because they all post their schedules, they're all respectful of their time. It's been great to make a property cash flow way more than the traditional long-term rental. Yeah, and I like the fact that it's to traveling professionals because they're there to work. So literally all they do is eat, work, and sleep. That's
Yeah.
it. When I say I launched the big method, it's not only real estate strategies, it's also a mindset. And I say that because I see a lot of people who are even more knowledgeable than me. and have way more information memorized than I do about real estate, about creative. It's not a lack of information, it's a lack of mindset.
Hmm.
What I tell people is when you get into the game, it's 95% mindset, 5% strategy.
That's right. I saw you are involved in RV parks too. What made you look into that type of investment and what should new investors know about it?
Okay. The only reason I landed into the RV parks is because my first goal was to have enough properties to retire comfortably, to have a property for each of my kids to have them set up. I did that in 13 months. I was like, okay, that was cool, right? I want to replace my income now. So that's my goal. I'm a journeyman lineman. I work outdoors. I travel a lot for work. I'm like, you know what? I want to go after my income now. Two of my properties in Yuma, Arizona, I was going to convert them into residential assisted living, and I was going to permit them for 10 residents each. Both of those properties would have replaced my paycheck. It's crazy how much money is involved in that, right?
Mhm.
As I'm permitting the property and getting the whole sprinkler system in the works, they changed the regulations in Yuma County. So I was like, no way. I had such a beautiful plan. I was so excited for it. And when the regulations changed, I can only do it for 5 people on each home, which would still cash flow if I worked in the business, which I don't want to do. I want to work on the business, right? So I think a big crucial part of being an entrepreneur is learning when and how to pivot. So I've worked in 32 states across the country, traveling a lot. And one thing I've always noticed is that there's RV parks, mobile home parks, or a combination of both. And I've always said it, like, I know they got to make money. So I started getting that idea in my head, like, okay, you know what? Maybe I can go commercial now. I learned the process, I learned the basics with single family homes. If I want to replace my income with less properties, with bigger numbers, I'm gonna start looking into RV parks. So I did. I know it's a big hype right now. I do want to tell anybody that's watching is you have to learn how to underwrite these assets. It's a completely different animal. Never believe the pro forma. Do your own research. Partner with somebody who knows how to underwrite these. I'm not the best at underwriting these. And one thing that I've learned through real estate is it's not about how, it's who, right? Connecting with the right people, leading with value, expecting nothing in return. The universe just gives it to you. So I have a really, really good underwriter. Shout out to my homie Ryan. And we've just been underwriting parks. I think because residential assisted living didn't work out for me in my area, is what made me look somewhere else. And now it's been RV parks and mobile home parks. So I'm looking anywhere in the Sunbelt states, looking for 50 pads minimum, $100,000 NOI minimum. So I'm looking for partners, equity partners, funding partners, private money lenders. I want to deal with a lot of people and we just do a bunch of epic deals and win together. So that's where I'm at right now.
Wow, that's awesome. You're growing so fast. I want to be your partner.
Come on. I'm here.
What's one thing you should say to someone watching this who feel stuck, scared, or like they are too late to start building wealth?
Okay. So if you think you're too late or you're scared, I would put a label on that and I'm going to call it a limited mindset. Okay. Once you understand that nothing is impossible, that anything can be achievable if you change your thoughts, then all that literally goes away. When I said that real estate has made me a better person, I did not used to think this way. I used to be the guy that would start something and not finish it. So it's been a lot of self-development. I strongly believe that people who are chasing passive income
Mhm.
should take their active income and invest in themselves, um, either paying for mentorship, joining a community, because doing this by yourself is that itself is pretty hard. And people have done it, but you get further when you have your own crew of people who think like you, who have the same ambitions and goals aligned as you do. Self-development is huge. But in order to get started and take that first step, imagine we're in a dark room
Mhm.
and you don't know what's ahead of you, and you take that step anyways. And when you take that step and your foot lands, it lights up. And then you're like, okay, time for the next step. You take the next step, but you don't know where you're going. But you take it in faith, knowing that you're going to figure it out. And
Mhm.
then you take that step and it lights up. That's how it is every single time on every deal, on any new objection that comes with being an entrepreneur. Getting comfortable with that uncomfortable feeling, that's almost on a daily. You just got to do it. So buy yourself some Nike shoes and just do it.
That's a good advice. Like you're a rock star. I had the pleasure to meet your beautiful wife. I know you have three kids. Can you tell a little bit about your family and your daily routines?
Oh yeah, I have a beautiful family. I have a 12-year-old daughter, Emma. I have a 3-year-old daughter, Natalia, and a 1-year-old boy, Gael. Oh my God, they all have their own beautiful personalities. I love being a dad. Everything that I do is for my family. Um, People always ask me, like, how do you do everything and still have time with your kids and your family? I'm
Yeah.
very intentional about what I do. I
Mhm.
have a strict schedule. My day starts at 1:45 in the morning, Monday through Saturday. Sundays, I sleep in till about 4 a.m. I sleep in. Um, I work 60 hours a week. I commute 5 hours a day back and forth because I never wanted to be a dad on the road. I strongly believe that if I have 4 hours with my kids every day of intentional time with them, it's more valuable than being all day home with them watching Netflix and watching TV. I think that has more of an impact. Being very intentional and time blocking with your time and having a system in place is going to facilitate a lot of things.
Mhm.
That's my advice to anybody who's has a job or a W-2 job, and you're like, well, how do you do it? This is how. How bad do you want it? Do you want it 3 a.m. bad, or do you want it 8 a.m. bad? What time do you wake up?
Mhm.
When you wake up before yourself at a certain time, that's when you realize that you're not competing with anybody but yourself. So,
Yeah, I think it's important to have a purpose, organization, make this a habit so it's easy to follow.
yeah, absolutely. When you have a burning desire within,
Mhm.
you won't need anything to stay motivated because your goal remains the same. When you do it for yourself, you get far, but when you do it for somebody else, like your family, your spouse, and your kids, oh man, you can't give up. You can't. There's no option. You just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the big heart you have and all the things that you're doing, not just to grow personally or professionally, but also to help the community. That it's very impactful. I really appreciate your friendship and I wish you the best.
I appreciate your friendship. Thank you for having me on here, Caro.
Thank you so much.